The woman stumbled into the hospital barefoot, her arm hanging by threads of torn muscle and seared flesh. Her abdomen was cut open, half-stitched with household thread. She clutched a plastic bag with a severed part of her own body, what he had told her to keep. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just whispered that she needed help. That was October 1989 in Ontario, Canada, and that woman had just escaped hell. What the doctors saw defied belief. What the police uncovered shocked a nation. They had heard rumors, but nothing like this. A cult hidden in the woods, a man they called the prophet, and behind his eyes, madness. He said he was chosen by God. He claimed he could heal the sick. But in the shadows of the commune, under the cloak of devotion, he became a monster. And his followers became his prisoners. This is the story of Roch Thériault. This is the story of the Anthill Kids. Roch Thériault was born in 1947 in Saguenay, Quebec, a place wrapped in piety and silence. He was raised by a devout mother and a cold, war-weary father who rarely spoke. As a child, Roch clung to religion not for salvation, but for control. He read the Bible obsessively, preached to animals, held funerals for pets like a young priest, rehearsing his authority. Neighbors whispered about him, a strange boy too serious, too intense. He punished playmates for not following his rules. Even in childhood, he didn't want friends, he wanted followers. By the time he reached adolescence, Roch had already lost his belief in traditional religion, claiming the Catholic Church was corrupt, but he hadn't lost faith in himself. In the early 1970s, Thériault reinvented himself as a self-proclaimed healer. He hosted wellness seminars, mixing fringe theology with herbal cures and paranoia. He was magnetic. He spoke of toxins, government corruption, and apocalyptic visions. And people listened, mostly women, disillusioned, vulnerable, seeking truth. Roch told them he had it. He married and had children, but also began building a spiritual family, one that listened, one that obeyed. He founded a movement, called it the Anthill Kids, symbolic of unity, labor, devotion. In 1977, he took them to the woods of Ste. Marie, Quebec, promising paradise. They followed, surrendering their homes, families, and identities. They built cabins from trees. They grew their food, laughed together, prayed together. For a time, it looked like the utopia he promised. But Roch was molding more than just wood and gardens. He was molding minds. He banned outside contact, cut them off from phones, mail, television. He seized their passports. He rewrote their names. There were no calendars, no clocks, just his word. He imposed punishments, beatings, starvation, isolation in sheds. People were forced to confess imaginary sins in front of others. He read minds, he said, and God confirmed their guilt. But they stayed. Because leaving meant hellfire. That's what he said. And they believed. Roch declared that the world would end. Only the Anthill Kids would survive. But salvation came at a price. He claimed God instructed him to purify his followers. That included surgeries. He removed teeth without anesthesia, performed stomach incisions with no training. He said pain was proof of faith. He began calling himself Moses. He fathered children with multiple women, insisting it was a divine mission. His word became law. His moods decided life or death. Punishments worsened. One woman was held over a fire for disobedience. Another was forced to cut off her own child's finger. Some tried to flee. They were caught, dragged back, and punished in front of everyone. Gabrielle Lavallee was one of many victims, but her story became the one the world couldn't forget. She endured sexual abuse, forced labor, mutilation. Thériault once removed part of her intestines with no anesthetic, then sewed her shut with sewing thread. She was told it was to save her soul. One day, he cut off part of her breast, then later her arm, slowly with dull blades, as punishment for trying to leave. Gabrielle survived. She escaped, with nothing but a plastic bag carrying her severed flesh and a whisper, "Please help me." That whisper became a scream, a raid, a reckoning. In 1989, police stormed the Ontario commune. What they found was beyond imagination. Children malnourished, followers traumatized, and crude surgical instruments stained with blood. Thériault was arrested. His followers, dazed, couldn't understand how their prophet was in handcuffs. During trial, survivors testified, voices trembling, eyes hollow. They described years of torment, spiritual manipulation, and absolute control. In 1993, Thériault was sentenced to life in prison, but for many the sentence felt shallow. Justice couldn't undo the scars. Some survivors moved on, found healing, and began to speak. Others stayed silent, stuck in a fog of trauma and confusion. The children who grew up in the commune were placed in care. Many would later ask, why didn't anyone come sooner? Thériault died in prison in 2011, murdered by another inmate, but his story didn't end there. It lingered in headlines, in documentaries, in the minds of those who once called him father, prophet, savior. They weren't fools, they weren't sheep, they were people searching for meaning, for love, for safety. And in their search, they found a man who promised light, but gave them darkness. But some made it out, some lived to tell, some still carry the weight. Dead men don't tell tales, but those who live through them do. And here we listen, one tale at a time,